Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. I can't quite see anyone's faces, so I'm just going to roll with it and hope it's all going well. So welcome to our November, can't believe it's November already, No and the How. Just a quick reminder that we are recording today's session and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube page and you will all receive a copy of the link to that in the next week or so. So don't fret if you miss anything or you want to go back and see anything, because you will get the recording. So today we are very privileged to have the wonderful Jo Kemp, who is our Philanthropic Services Manager, hosting this webinar. Jo is joined by Caroline Milburn, who is the CEO and co-founder of Ourschool, who is our guest today. And we also may or may not at some point have our wonderful colleague Hayley joining us as well. So Jo, I will pass over to you and go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that intro, and great to see your faces. I can see a few faces, but I've got my slides going, so I can't see everyone. But I'll just like to start by welcoming you all and acknowledging that the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and the connections to land, sea and community that they have, and we pay our elders respect to past, present and emerging elders, and to Aboriginal and Torres Strait people today. I am very lucky to live in central Victoria on Wurundjeri country, and yeah, feel very, very grateful to wake up in this beautiful land every day. Hayley, who is my offsider here, she's on Dja Dja Wurrung country, which is in Bendigo, which is the headquarters, I suppose, of FRRR, and Caroline, who's joining us from Ourschool, is also on Wurundjeri country. So thanks for dialing in today, and looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about our fundraising accounts. So the approach for today, I thought we'll just share a little bit about FRRR, just the short version, to kind of give you a picture of what makes us unique and able to sort of operate in the way that we do and with the fundraising accounts. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about how the fundraising accounts actually work and how they can help your organisation if you're seeking to do some active fundraising. We'll talk about eligibility and application and sort of the nuts and bolts of the operations of accounts, and also share a few examples with you. And I'm really happy that we've got Caroline from Ourschool. She's one of our existing account partners, has been with us for a couple of years. So we'll have a little chat to her about, in reality, what it's like to have a fundraising account partnership with FRRR and the sort of impact that it's had for their organisation. And then there will be time for some questions. So maybe just note them down as you go along, and yeah, we'll get to them towards the end. Okay, so see if I can work my technology here. So FRRR, so our mission is connecting goodwill with good purpose for the vitality of remote and rural Australia. We were established back in 2000, so 23 years we've been going around now, and a lot of people know of us as a grant-making organisation, but we do have a few other strings to our bow, which I guess the fundraising accounts are a good example of that. So we're the only national foundation specifically focused on ensuring the social economic strength in remote, rural and regional Australia. And we work on aligning government, philanthropic and community purposes and investments. So it's a unique funding model that links government, philanthropy and community grants with identified local needs. And I guess we very much work on the premise that local leaders are the experts in your communities. So our job is really to do a lot of listening and learning to understand what are the local needs and priorities for you, and how we can best support those through our grants and through our fundraising accounts and other sort of capacity building work that we do with communities. So a very committed focus on rural and regional communities, and often we're working with some of the really smallest, most remote communities in Australia. So yeah, it's a really privileged opportunity to work in this space and with the communities and the leaders that we do work with. So I guess the fundamental foundations of success for communities and for FRRR around harnessing grassroots leadership and economic viability, the on-the-ground connections that we have across the FRRR team. So I think we're approaching around 40 staff now, and we're based not just in and around Bendigo, but over the last few years, much more broadly across Australia and New South Wales and Queensland and WA as well. So, yeah, lots of lived experience within the team that enables us to do our work as best we can. So our strategy, just a quick snapshot. We have 3 key focus areas. We work with people, so very much around strengthening local not-for-profit organisations and community groups, and particularly volunteer-led organisations, which we know are a powerhouse in rural and regional communities and getting things done. We work in the disaster resilience and climate solutions space, so particularly partnering with communities before, during and after disasters. We do have a strong focus on community preparedness and supporting communities to be ready for future shocks and things that might come along. As we know, we've seen a lot of disasters and so on over the last few years, but we very much work in probably a stronger focus around medium to long-term recovery for communities, and we've supported communities who have been through disaster events for 10 years or more beyond that event, which is really important. And we know that recovery takes a long time in many cases. And the other focus area is around place. So I guess really celebrating local cultures and fostering self-generation and improving access to those core social and physical infrastructure that make rural and regional communities wonderful places to be. So that little cogwheel that you see on the screen, we talk about insights and learning, grant and develop, and leverage and broker. So as I said, very well known as a grant-making organisation, that space of leverage and broker is really where the fundraising account sits. So that's where we can work with communities and our donor partners to really leverage investment and capital. And through the fundraising accounts is one way that we can invite those funds to be donated to FRRR and then be used for local communities and their key activities and operations and so on that we can talk about. So I guess just for the context of how FRRR can work in the way that we do and what makes us special, and I think of it as our superpower really, is that we have a special listing in the Tax Act, which makes us a legislated DGR1 entity. And it also, importantly, we are an approved conduit organisation. So there's not very many of those. And our conduit status, I suppose, is very much focused on rural and regional communities and enabling us to receive funds and make sure they're getting out into the places to do great work and where they're needed most. So one of the kind of other superpowers of FRRR as well is that we can grant to any not-for-profit organisations for what are considered broad charitable purposes, so that demonstrates wide public benefit. So we don't, as a granting organisation, we don't require other organisations or grantee organisations to have DGR1 status, which is important when it comes to talking about our fundraising accounts. So because of our tax status, FRRR can receive funds from a really broad range of donors without limitation. So from individuals, from private ancillary funds, public ancillary funds, so those DGR2 type organisations, from trusts, foundations and businesses. And we, as a DGR, we can provide a tax deductible receipt for any of those donations. So I guess given our long history of going on 23 years now, we've really very fortunate to become a trusted national philanthropic organisation, which, it's really wonderful in terms of the trust that we receive from our donor partners to support the activities that we do. So, yes, you can see we can leverage philanthropic, government and community capital and really use those funds to support communities to seed and strengthen and try new ideas and build out their activities, to adapt and evolve. So particularly maybe in a perhaps a climate solution space where we see communities having to adapt and change and try new activities or way forwards, and also to innovate and renew. So those are the sorts of key languages that we use to identify and talk about the work that we do. So with that in mind, try and change to the next slide. Let's talk about fundraising accounts. So what are they? It's a partnership with FRRR, really aimed at boosting your fundraising. So they're the types of organisations that are eligible for an account are not-for-profits that do not already have their own DGR status. So it enables you to be able to offer your donors tax deductibility, which really can be a game changer in unlocking new donors that you may not otherwise have been eligible to receive a donation from. So we might talk about, those private trusts and foundations that might have a DGR2 status, and they require a DGR1 organisation to be able to contribute funds to or make a donation. So that's where the fundraising account can play a role, in that those funds can be donated under an agreement with FRRR to support your organisation. So it can be really great in expanding your network to leverage more funds. As part of the fundraising account process, we have a team of finance gurus that look after all the funds. So there's, I guess, some administrative support that's really valuable on that side, in that they receive the funds, or FRRR receives the funds into our public fund. Our team ensures that they're allocated appropriately, and we have systems in place to do that, provide receipting, and we then go on to provide quarterly statements and end of financial year statements to our account partners for any donations that have been received to support your activities. I guess the other thing that comes under the umbrella of the fundraising account is marketing and profiling opportunities. So by being an approved partner of FRRR, we look for opportunities where it makes sense to profile your work through our social media networks, through our monthly e-news and donor news that we distribute to a really broad network of organisations that follow FRRR. So that's, I guess, something else to keep in mind. So a fundraising account, when we look at establishing an account and maybe, start having a conversation with a new organisation about what they would like to fundraise for, we agree on particular projects and activities, but it is very flexible in terms of how funds can be used. So you might have a specific project or an ongoing program that you raise funds for, or you might be looking to raise funds for building your organisational capacity. And more, I guess, we're seeing that that's a real space that not-for-profit organisations are interested in and seeking funds for. So that might be around purchasing a premises, or building out your strategic planning activities, looking at evaluation and communications, and all those sorts of things that are critical in running a successful not-for-profit organisation. Things like staffing, utilities and insurances can also fall into that bucket. So there, for FRRR, I guess, to host a fundraising account partnership, there is a management fee that's involved. That is 5% of donations that are received into the account. So as funds are donated to FRRR, individually they are receipted, and the 5% would come as the funds are received by FRRR. But it is capped at a maximum of $5,000. So in a really super happy world, and you might get a very large donation, $500,000 or something like that, the maximum of fee for FRRR would be $5,000. Just got a little picture there of one of our account partners, because I felt the urge that I needed a beautiful shiny picture on each of my slides. But Lighten Up is an organisation you might have heard of, based in Lismore, who do beautiful, very highly creative lantern parade, an annual lantern parade in Lismore. And they've unfortunately been affected by lots of flooding over the years up there. So they use their fundraising account to not only support their operations, but also they've used it to sort of recover in times of after disaster as well. So eligibility to apply for an account, basically not-for-profit organisations and also social enterprises who don't already have their own DGR status. Our strong preference is that your organisation is registered as a charity with the ACNC. And that really, I guess it's a demonstration to us of the charitability, the nature of the work that you're doing. And it's also a really good demonstration to your prospective donors as well, that they are donating to a charity and that your activities are, in fact, supporting local community outcomes. As a ballpark, we say we talk about raising approximately $30,000 a year or more through the account, and that you have a fundraising plan in place to demonstrate how you're going to do that, and that you've thought through what strategies that you'll use. I think sometimes people think that having a fundraising account partnership with FRRR and being able to offer donors DGR status and tax deductibility will be sort of open the floodgates to funding coming through to them. But it's really important, I guess, to keep in mind that actually, whilst we can partner with your organisation and host the account, it's still the responsibility of the fundraising account partner to drive the fundraising on your end. So we will do things that we can, we try as much as possible to support you and make connections with donors where we see there's a good opportunity or profile, as I said, through some of our social media, for example. But yeah, important to keep that in mind. We can partner with local government as well if we can demonstrate that the activity is above and beyond what the usual role of government would be or the usual responsibility. So there's a number of examples where we've done this, and often it's easier to demonstrate that and the role that philanthropy can play in contributing to some government-led activities, because you might be familiar, like a lot of local government organisations have very restricted budgets and are really about delivering those key services to their communities. So where they're looking to do activities that are above or beyond that is a place that we might be able to support some fundraising towards. And I guess the other key thing is that any activities that are you're raising funds for and will be supporting activities in your community or must fit within FRRR's purposes and remit, which is very broad and really around promoting rural, regional renewal, regeneration and development. So that's the key criteria. Beautiful little picture again of from our account partner at Australian Wooden Boat Festival in Tasmania. And each year they have a very strong maritime theme and festival that they run each year down in Hobart. So that's another one of our example of our account partners. Now, Hayley is my partner in crime. I'm not sure that she's got any audio. Can we hear you, Hayley? I was going to throw to you.
Can everyone hear me?
We can. Great. All right. So Hayley is our Philanthropic Services Officer. She works very closely with me to support all of our account partners. So I was just going to, so you can have a face to the name. Hayley's going to talk through about our account application process. So over to you.
Lovely. Thanks, Jo. Hi, everybody. So this is a bit of an overview of how the application process goes. So to start off with, you submit an expression of interest online on our website, and I've got a little bit of a screenshot in the next slide to show you that. So it usually, we try to review the EOIs fairly quickly, and then when appropriate, invite the full application. The time frame to establish an account is usually about 6 to 8 weeks. But we can accommodate that if there's a sense of urgency and a reason to do that, or if there's particular timelines that you need to adhere to, we can speed up that process. Generally has to go to the board for approval and all that sort of thing. So once the EOI or the application is submitted through our online portal, Grants Gateway, Jo conducts the assessment. Then it goes to the board for review. Once that's all approved, we'll let you know, and then we'll send out the MOU for you to sign and send back to us. Then you can start fundraising. So we set up a donation form through our online portal. We set up a EFT donation form as well that people can fill out or print out and write in and physically send it in to us if they're using a check or something like that. So then you can begin fundraising. Once you've got some funds in your account, you can request some funds and then distribute them for what your account purpose is. Usually it's a fairly quick turnaround on the requests. It's about a week that we can, from us receiving them to processing to going through the process. And then there's 6 monthly progress reports due at the end of June and the end of December. So as long as you can request funds at any time, as long as your progress reports are up to date. Once they're up to date, smooth sailing. So I'll go to the Grants Gateway slide. So this is our Grants Gateway portal. So on the left there, that's a bit of a snapshot of our not-for-profit fundraising account page. And down the bottom there, it's pretty small. So I couldn't get it any bigger than that. But down the bottom there in the blue is where you submit your expression of interest. And that will go through our online portal, which is pictured on the right there. We're currently in the process of moving all our not-for-profit fundraising accounts into our portal. So everything's a bit smoother. All the distribution requests and reports and things like that will go through the portal. And yeah, I think that's about it on Grants Gateway.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Hayley. So I guess also worth noting that usually the partnership is set up for a 3-year term. And so that we outline sort of the terms and conditions of the partnership through the MOU. There's examples of that on our website that you can have a look at, but it's all pretty straightforward. So in terms of following on from how the application process works, once it's all set up and going, as Hayley mentioned, we organise a donation form, and we have an e-commerce portal through our website that you can connect your donors to, link across from your own website, which seems to occur really efficiently. We provide quarterly and end of financial year account statements so you can track your donors' activity. And also, where donors are happy for us to share their details, we also provide their names, email address, and the amount that they've contributed to your account so that you can really support your donor stewardship and maintain that connection with your donors. There is an example of Country University Centre here, who's one of our account partners. They operate study hubs for tertiary students across the country. They've got a lot of branches in different rural and regional towns across New South Wales particularly, and into Queensland and Victoria. And because they have a central organisation, and then they have, under the umbrella of that organisation, they have a number of centres across different locations. We've actually set up what we call sub-accounts for those individual branches. So each local branch can actually harness their own local donor network in their own town and encourage them to donate particularly to their centre as opposed to the broader organisation. So there's an example I've just shown here of what it looks on our website, and then when you click through to that, you can select a particular branch to support. So along those lines, we can do that with other account partners. If you have a particular, you might be looking for a general fund where you might be raising funds for your broader organisational activities, and then you might be interested in supporting a unique project that you might have on the go that you'd like to raise funds for individually. So we can explore those sorts of opportunities through the fundraising accounts. Hayley's also already mentioned the 6 monthly report and the request for funds process. The 6 monthly report requirement is something that sits within the MOU, and that's about us being able to really close the loop on the funding that comes through FRRR and that is granted out to your organisation. And I say granted out to your organisation because it's important to understand that donations are made to FRRR. We hold them in our public fund, and once you request the funds under the partnership agreement of the fundraising account, then we consider that a grant to your organisation from FRRR. So those funds we look to acquit through the 6 monthly reporting process, which we try to keep as light as possible, and happy to accept other reports that you might have prepared for another purpose to kind of talk about and tell the story of how you've been using the funds and what outcomes that you've achieved through that process. Just a few examples. I've been trying to sort of highlight a few of our account partners along the way, just to give you a sense of the types of organisations that we support. So a few more is Housing Matters Action Group, which is up in Bellingen in New South Wales. They're looking for alternative housing solutions to what is a really pretty critical housing situation in their region. So they're one of our account partners, and they raise funds for their operations and activities. Attract, Connect, Stay is an organisation in Glen Innes, and they're responding to the lack of healthcare workers that they have in their community. And so they're offering a service to invite health workers to their community and support them as they resettle and look for support their families to come to live in a new town and get connected with the community. So that's another example. Motherland are down in Tassie, based in Tassie, but they also have a nationwide focus of supporting mothers in rural and regional communities to be connected through their virtual online groups. St Paul's Carcoar in New South Wales, they came together as a community to purchase the Anglican Church in beautiful Carcoar and needed to raise a lot of funds to turn that into a community venue where they now run events and use it as a community facility. So they established an FRRR fundraising account for specifically that purpose, to raise funds for that, to purchase that building, and now they use the account for the ongoing operations and maintenance requirements that they have for the building. And lastly on there, you can see the logo for Ourschool. So this is where I'm going to invite Caroline, who's joined us today, to talk a little bit about her organisation and the partnership with FRRR. So I'll sneak across to the next slide. So yeah, welcome Caroline. From Ourschool, already introduced it earlier. I'll pass to you to just maybe give us a little bit of an overview of what you do. And then we can talk about the fundraising account.
Okay, thank you so much, Jo. Yes, so just a few details about Ourschool. As you can see there from the slide, we help public high schools build student-centred alumni programs. And the reason why we do this is that there is no tradition in the public high school sector of reaching out and schools connecting with their alumni to support and help their current students and future students. But obviously in the university sector and also in the private school sector, it's quite common for schools to connect with their communities through alumni engagement. So we decided that it would be something that it would be very helpful for state high schools if they wanted to develop an alumni program and reach out to their alumni. And so our service does just that. We have many rural and regional high schools that wanted to start an alumni program, and so we work with those schools. They're our partner schools, to show them how to do that in a sustainable and accountable way. So it's very much a student-centred program. It's not so much about holding reunions for alumni. It's focused on inviting alumni back to school to advise students about career pathways. And you can see one of our career pathways sessions in that photograph, where we invited alumni from different backgrounds whether they're tertiary students or they're working in interesting occupations, to come back and speak to students to inspire them about potential pathways and study pathways and occupations and career pathways. So that's the main flagship element of our program, but obviously other alumni, they may want to provide a student scholarship, and so our service helps schools connect with alumni who might want to do that.
Wonderful. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see some of the faces, and I thought maybe we could just have a bit more of a chat, Caroline, about what the fundraising account has meant to our school. So a couple of years ago, I think that we've had the account now for about 2 years. Can you talk about why you decided to apply for a fundraising account with FRRR?
Well, as I said, we've got quite a few partner schools who are based in regional and rural Victoria. And we, as an organisation, our school, were very aware that the lack of our DGR status, even though we are a registered charity with the ACNC, but the lack of DGR1 tax deductibility status meant that it really limited our ability to apply for certain grants from trusts and foundations that we knew that we would be eligible for otherwise. So there was a particular grant round that I was interested in, but to support charities that are working with rural and regional communities, as we are. And I knew that because we didn't have DGR1, we wouldn't be able to apply for that grant. So that was the main reason why we reached out to FRRR to set up a not-for-profit account, so that then our school could apply to that foundation for a particular grant. And so we were successful. Once we'd set up the not-for-profit account, that grant is paid into our FRRR account, and then we receive the grant funding from that account. So it's an auspicing arrangement. And that's been very successful. So we have managed to get a 3-year grant from that one particular funder, because we were able to say, well, we have DGR1 status through the FRRR account.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be really technical and just pick up on the auspice terminology. And just to clarify that when I spoke earlier in the presentation, that FRRR is a conduit organisation. So it's slightly different to an auspice arrangement, but it does allow us to act in this way, which is, creates the outcome that Caroline's just talked about really beautifully. I think the other nice example about the partnership with our school is you will have noticed that Caroline talked about they have Metro programs and activities, and also the others that are focused on rural and regional communities. So whilst FRRR can only support activities that are primarily for rural and regional communities, sometimes there might be some incidental outcomes for metro communities, but primarily rural and regional. So we partner with our school to support just their rural and regional activity, and they raise funds separately through other processes for their metro-based programs. So just to call that out. If you find yourself in a similar situation, just because you have metro activities doesn't mean that we can't partner with you to support those other activities. Caroline, can you talk a little bit about what strategies? So you've talked about applying for grants to funders that might require DGR1 status. Are there any other ways that you've used the account to raise funds?
Yes, because it allowed us to diversify our fundraising strategy. So we primarily rely on applying for grants, but it also allowed us to develop our fundraising strategy to include individual donations from individuals who wanted to donate to our work to support our work in rural and regional schools. So that's allowed us to create a page on our website. So we have got a donation page on our website, and any random person who happens to come across our website can go to that page and see that if they want to donate and get a tax deduction, they can do so through our website, and it goes directly to the FRRR portal. So their individual donation goes through our FRRR account. So we've been able to design a web page as part of our website, that allows people to get a tax deduction, and they know that their donation is, they get a receipt from FRRR, but it's for our project for regional and rural schools. So it has allowed us to diversify our fundraising strategy. And also we did start, as part of that diversification and development of our fundraising strategy, we did run, in the last couple of years, we've run a Christmas online appeal. And we're not going to do that this year because it was just too labour intensive for a really small organisation. But we did dip our toe into the water there, and we did get some people donating through our website in the Christmas appeal. But obviously, as Joe mentioned, you can't just assume that just because you've got a donation page on your website that people are going to donate. You do need to run a campaign, and that requires back office resources. So it's a much larger project than just assuming that people are going to know that you have a page on your website where they can provide an individual donation.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. That particularly for volunteer-led organisations, there's a lot of resourcing and time that goes into driving fundraising strategies. So just something to be mindful of. We're probably preaching to the converted here, but yeah, just keeping that in mind, I suppose. What about the process of setting up your account? How did you find working through that?
Well, I found FRRR to be incredibly responsive, and always at the end of a phone call, which is fantastic. It was relatively seamless. It was actually a pleasure to deal with the people at FRRR. So we didn't have any real hiccups, and FRRR were very willing to speak to our the foundation who was giving us the grant via FRRR. That was very easy to sort out any sort of confusion or whatever, and so yeah, I found you really responsive and very good to deal with. And it may well be that you're you've got people scattered everywhere, and you know how to deal with lots of different inquiries as they come in. But I found it really easy, and certainly my operations manager, I spoke to her about this webinar and said, how did you find it? And she said she found it quite seamless, and you are very easy to deal with, and responsive, whereas some organisations aren't very responsive and it's difficult to get on the phone, but often everything was sorted out in the phone call. So that was very helpful when we did have questions to ask.
Very grateful for that feedback, so thank you. Yeah, it is something that we aim to do across all our programs, is to be available and to work through any questions that might come up. And as Caroline mentioned, we're always happy to connect with donors that you might have in your pipeline, I suppose, to help them understand the FRRR arrangement and how we're able to work together, and to assure them, if they're unfamiliar with FRRR and how the accounts work, that their donation will be directed to the community organisation that they're looking to support. So happy to follow up along those sorts of lines. Caroline and Ourschool came on board in the kind of not too distant past, but prior to us transitioning a lot of our account activity into our Grants Gateway portal that Hayley talked through. So we are in this process of transition, and I guess Caroline's will be new to that. But just in terms of your experience to date of the reporting and accessing funds, and how you access the account in terms of those sorts of activities, what's your feedback or experience there?
Well, I think it has been, relatively positive. I think that one of the, and this is where I've been grateful for us giving feedback to you and you acting on it. I mean, it can be a little bit disconcerting for some charities where it's not like a bank where you can just sort of open it up and see how much money you've got in your account at any one time. You have to ask FRRR to send you a statement, because usually you only get your statement twice a year. So, for example, if you did have an individual donor donate to your account, you don't get a notification that someone has done that. So therefore, that can be a little bit disconcerting. But generally, I mean, we're a small organisation, relatively small, although we are going to expand interstate. But at any time you can ask to see what's in the account, because you have to request the funds as a charity. So it's a little bit different to, going online and looking at what's in your not-for-profit account at any one time. And then the other issue was, because the donors get a receipt from FRRR on your behalf, you don't know who the donors are, but now I understand that FRRR has got a box on the form so that an individual donor can tick that to say that they'll be the charity that they're donating to, they can be identified as a donor, because that was a frustration in the early days with us, because we didn't know who the donors were, because of course we want to say thank you as well, because they are donating to us via FRRR. So now the form has been changed to enable people to allow their identity to be passed on to the organisation that they're donating to, so that you as the charity and the recipient of the donation can thank them as well.
Yeah, so that's also another really useful thing to raise, Caroline, is that because of the conduit nature of the partnership and that FRRR is receiving funds, we are bound by privacy laws in terms of how we can share donor details. So we've implemented a new process, which I think is working really well, and providing our account partners a lot more detail and also contacts for them to reach out to their donors when the donors opt in. So we invite them and we encourage them to be willing to share their donors. Sometimes they choose to be anonymous, and that's the same with any donor to FRRR. But yeah, we're really working to ensure and encourage them to do that, because totally appreciate, as FRRR is not just a grant-making organisation, but we're a fundraising organisation as well, that we really appreciate the importance of that donor stewardship element and enabling you to be able to do that and follow through on that. So wonderful. Well, I think that's some really nice and useful insights into your experience and in what account looks like in a live example. I might take this opportunity to maybe open up the floor for some questions. If anybody's got some burning things that you'd like to learn more about, we might be able to cover off now. Feel free to jump in, but if there aren't, I'm also going to, if I can remember how to share my screen again, show some resources for you in terms of next step if you'd like to progress a conversation, so about a fundraising account. I think I'm about to do this correctly. There we are. So yeah, this final slide really is just to how can we help? How can we continue the conversation if you're interested in finding out more? So there's details on our fundraising account on the FRRR webpage. There's the link there, but if you just jump on our webpage and Google, pop into the search engine fundraising accounts, that'll pop up for you, and you'll find a lot of information. And also you'll see that there's a expression of interest button that you can go through and prepare an online expression of interest, which is very straightforward. It's really asking about your organisation, a summary of what you do, what you're looking to seek, what you're seeking to raise funds for, your ABN and such, so that we can look up your organisation and ensure that it's eligible for us to partner with. And that's basically it. Talk about maybe how much you're seeking to raise, and then we can review and come back to you with some questions or invite you to submit more information and a full application. Hayley and I are always around and available if you've got any questions. So there's our contact number, and also encourage you to subscribe to our e-news and FRRR socials if you're not already. We do profile accounts through our e-news regularly, and it also has lots of other information about what we're up to at FRRR, including our many grant programs and opportunities. So yeah, that's kind of the best way to reach out. And that's kind of the end of our presentation, but still very happy to. I'm going to stop sharing again somehow. Any questions? I can see there's a couple of things in the chat. Let me have a quick look. Great. If you are just starting out with a social enterprise, do you need to give feedback on an expression of interest? Yeah, so the best way, so if you don't have a formal entity set up already, yes, please, just happy for you to give us a call and we can discuss where you're up to and what you're thinking and what you're looking to fundraise for. And also with social enterprises, a little bit about your model that you're using and how that will be set up. So it will be important for us to have some of that information. But yeah, happy to just give us a call or send an email, and we can kind of progress the conversation from there. There's no other questions. I'll let you back to go and have some lunch or get on with your day. But really wanting to thank Caroline for joining us. Really appreciate your insights and experience and sharing that with us. And thanks to Miles for organising this session.
Thank you, Jo. It was an excellent session.
Wonderful. All right. Well, take care, everybody. Have a great day.